Not too long ago, the YouTuber In Praise of Shadows was a relatively successful media analyst with a decent following. He delved into the meanings behind horror movies, shows, and artworks, all while subtly promoting his left-leaning political views. But then, out of nowhere, he posted an over 3-hour-long video slandering and exposing Wendigoon, Shoeonhead, Brandon Buckingham, and a handful of other prominent YouTubers. This video bombed harder than Twitter rebranding to X. It shattered the reputation In Praise of Shadows spent 5 years building overnight and made him the laughingstock of the internet. It's got so bad that when you search for his channel on YouTube, the first video you see is about how disastrously bad this last one video was.
In reality, you're a delusional, hateful hypocrite, and this is the worst video I've ever seen.
Hi, I'm the InternetAnarchist. I create weekly YouTube documentaries, and today, we'll be looking into the destructive downfall of In Praise of Shadows, a YouTuber who thought it would be a good idea to go after some of the most beloved creators on the platform. With arguments so poorly constructed and illogical, it almost appears to be a parody on why they are the ultimate evil. On the 25th of May 2024, Zane, the host of In Praise of Shadows, uploaded a now deleted video titled Bad Conservative Horror Movies, a video that seemed no different to his previous content at a first glance, but started off on an extremely bizarre topic that had little to do with his title or thumbnail. He opened the video with a lengthy rant about a terrible horror convention he attended a couple months prior, labeling it as quote redneck and quote unprofessional.
Over the weekend, I traveled to Concord, North Carolina to attend this year's Mad Monster Party, which was far and away the most redneck and unprofessional convention that I had ever been to in my life.
This introduction alone hinted at the political bias that would taint the rest of the arguments in his video. And after complaining about small details like the distance to the parking lot and material used for the weekend pass, he then presents a theory of his that's a stretch at best and utterly absurd at worst.
I think there's actually not one, but two distinct horror communities. One that is more concerned with writing and thinking about how our own experiences and world are reflected through art. And then you have another that is more conservative and traditionally capital A American, and is based more in basic consumerism and viewing movies strictly as entertainment and nothing else.
So, according to him, horror fans with right-leaning political views are incapable of appreciating the subtext and artistry behind horror movies and shows, basically calling them intellectually inferior. Now, you might think that after a nearly 25-minute rant about the conservative leanings of the convention's organizers, Zane would finally get to the point of the video. But shocker, he doesn't. Instead, he switches gears to talk about how rough his life has been due to the criticism he received on his video analyzing the Hills Have Eyes movie franchise.
In the time since making that video, very often it is the case that when conservatives want to criticize me, they will go back to that and use it as a weapon.
He then spends another 25 minutes or so reading mean tweets that criticize his views on the beloved movie franchise and complaining about receiving these tweets. During this, he also states this:
by twisting my words in very bad faith to make it look like I said something that I obviously did not intend if you had watched the video. Usually in an attempt to make me either look crazy or cartoonish or racist.
Which is extremely ironic considering the nonsensical statements he makes about other creators later in the video. For context, he's mostly talking about tweets like these that label him as racist due to what he said in his analysis video. However, what makes Zane's self-victimization completely baseless is that regardless of what he thinks, the racism allegations are not entirely untrue. So, he not only fails to acknowledge that what he said was wrong, but also labels all criticism of his words as something right-leaning conservatives say to, quote, attack him. Here, he also talks at length about how he's barely making ends meet with the money he's earning from YouTube, which is an unusual thing to discuss in a video about horror movies. However, Brandon Buckingham offers a pretty good explanation in his reaction video of what Zane is really trying to get at.
There was a month last year where I only made $500 in ad revenue. I can't live off that.
What does he think he will accomplish by saying stuff like this? He thinks he's just the sweetest little birthday boy and he's not deserving of any criticism whatsoever. He thinks he deserves success and money and praise, but instead, all he's getting is hate and he's broke.
Up until this point though, Zane's video has been nothing but ramblings about barely connected topics like bad horror conventions, the online criticism he's received, and his financial situation. However, an hour and 20 minutes into the video, he said something really strange.
Trust me when I say that conservatives are perfectly capable, just like anyone else, of being funny and learning how to produce art, but in practice is dangerous, and allows the slow infiltration of conservative beliefs and to places that they should not be allowed.
This made it clear that the video isn't about horror or movies. Instead, it's about rejecting the conservative belief system and everything relating to it. Understanding this bit would also help make sense of what the entire controversy is about. Zane's weird statements regarding Wendigoon and other YouTubers. But before we get into the specifics of what he said, it's important to note that the issue people have with Zane's video isn't that he said something mean about their favorite YouTubers. Instead, the majority of the backlash stems from the fact that Zane makes some outlandish claims about the lives and true intentions of these YouTubers. And as you'll see, he does not present any solid evidence or logical explanation to back up his words. Over 2 hours and 40 minutes into the video, Zane shifts his focus from criticizing conservatives in general to targeting one specific YouTuber, Wendigoon. He starts his rambling with some serious allegations
that, as you will hopefully come to see, should not be seen as the wholesome, southern-friendly dad persona that he has publicly constructed around himself in the past several years. And that, like many people who talk about being Christians as much as he does, has a dark past with deep ties to far-right extremism.
Then he goes on to state that he does not respect Wendigoon's opinions because he's rich and young.
I have no need or desire to hear 5 hours of opinions on Blood Meridian from a 21-year-old millionaire.
Dismissing Wendigoon's media analysis skills due to his financial background. So let's get this straight. He complains about his own money problems and then bashes a YouTuber for being young and financially stable. This not only exposes the true intentions behind his so-called criticism, but also reveals a glaring hypocrisy. Also, by this logic, if the Embrace of Shadows channel becomes successful and makes Zane rich, will his own critiques and opinions on movies become irrelevant as well? Next, Zane claims that Wendigoon follows social media accounts of controversial figures like Kyle Rittenhouse, who shot and killed 2 people during a protest in 2020. He then shows a screenshot of a tweet that Wendigoon supposedly made in support of Rittenhouse. However, he also immediately admits that there is no proof the screenshot is real to begin with.
Although, since I did not take these screenshots, they do have to be taken with a grain of salt.
So, if these screenshots could be fake, why is he using them as supposed proof of Wendigoon's support for Rittenhouse? Well, in his own words, it's because Wendigoon never publicly claimed that these screenshots are fake. So surely, there must be some truth to them.
These have been widespread across the internet, and to my knowledge, I can find no examples of him directly saying that these are not real. So he may or may not have actually followed these accounts or supported them.
Even though it's entirely possible that Wendigoon might not have seen these screenshots before, or is choosing to ignore them on purpose to avoid any further drama. It's not difficult to create a fake screenshot, so jumping to conclusions based solely on silence is completely illogical. A comment on Wendigoon's official subreddit also presents this whole argument from a different perspective. You ever heard of hate following a person? That's what's probably doing with those sus accounts. So even if we assume that these screenshots are real, just because Wendigoon follows Rittenhouse doesn't mean he agrees with his political views. The next argument Zane brings up is even more ridiculous, with evidence that can only be described as laughable. According to Zane, Wendigoon is the mastermind behind the Boogaloo Boys extremist group, because the group's name is derived very similar to Wendigoon's old username, Boogaloo Boy. Unfortunately for him, Wendigoon clarified in a Reddit post that he has nothing to do with the group. He explained that he originally used the term Boogaloo based on Che Guevara's code word for revolution, as he's always been a proponent of freedom and liberty. However, as the term became more mainstream, it was hijacked by far-right groups, and its original meaning was distorted into something completely different. Upon realizing its new connotation, Wendigoon completely distanced himself from it and began posting media analysis videos under his current channel name. Despite this clarification, Zane still insists that Wendigoon has ties to the Boogaloo Boys group because he wears Hawaiian shirts in his videos.
Also, it should be noted that the Boogaloo Boys are known for wearing Hawaiian shirts. And guess who else always has on a Hawaiian shirt, despite the fact that he publicly totally does not share in their beliefs, guys.
Does this mean that anyone who wears Hawaiian shirts is connected to this extremist group? Here, Zane also nitpicks on the exact words Wendigoon uses in his Reddit post regarding the Boogaloo Boys.
People who are centrist, or on the left, do not use the phrasing Antifa members. The only people who say that are the ones that see Antifa as some sort of homogenous radical left-wing activist group.
As if saying Antifa members instead of just Antifa somehow proves he holds alt-right beliefs. After these illogical arguments, Zane then moves on to attacking people Wendigoon has interacted with, online or in person, accusing them of being part of the same racist alt-right group as Wendigoon. He starts with Turkey Tom.
Wendigoon is very publicly friends with Turkey Tom. They have been seen together on multiple occasions, and I've seen online mentions that Tom was either at his wedding or at the very least was invited.
And why does Zane think Turkey Tom is alt-right? Because of some dumb stuff he said on the internet as a teenager over 6 years ago. Next, Zane targets the internet historian, accusing him of being alt-right because he once jokingly said his birthday was on the 20th of April, which also happens to be Hitler's birthday. He completely ignores that April 20th is also 420, the haha funny infamous weed day. He then continues to mention a number of other YouTubers who had some positive interactions with Wendigoon, including Brandon Buckingham, Shoonhead, Umberville, and some ordinary gamer, all while making absurd statements about each one of them. For instance, this is what he says about Brandon Buckingham.
He is friends with Brandon Buckingham, a gun YouTuber who has been accused of threatening
completely ignoring the fact that the grape allegations came from Sneeko of all people and were not backed by any evidence. Similarly, he accuses Shoonhead of being a quote conservative masquerading as a leftist because a joke she made on Twitter, taking her words out of context and presenting them as malicious, which is ironic, considering he complained about the same thing happening to him earlier in the video.
Very often it is the case that when conservatives want to criticize me, they will go back to that and use it as a weapon, by twisting my words in very bad faith to make it look like I said something that I obviously did not intend if you had watched the video.
Speaking of irony, near the end of the video, Zane says this about the area Wendigoon grew up in.
It is about as white as you could possibly get. Deep Appalachia is very white country, and for the most part, is exceptionally racist.
Essentially labeling a whole community of people as racists just because they are white and live in the Appalachian region of the US. Isn't this type of stereotyping based on race racist in and of itself? The same thing Zane has been trying to accuse Wendigoon of being? Finally, Zane ends the video by calling for Wendigoon's cancellation, saying that he should not be allowed in public because of the alleged racism, even though he did not provide a single credible piece of evidence to back his claims.
But the reason that I care is because this does not belong in horror, or anywhere. I care deeply about horror, and everything that he does has demonstrated so far in his career that he should not be welcomed in our spaces, or even, just in public in general.
Even if we ignore the blatant misrepresentation of facts and absurd arguments with no logical backing, the whole video feels off from start to finish. It's like a poor attempt at creating an H-Bomber-Guy video, except without everything that makes H-Bomber-Guy's content engaging, namely his research, humor, and evidence. But why make such a video in the first place, when there are plenty of horror media franchises left to analyze? Well, the obvious answer is views. You see, Zane's channel has been in decline since late 2021, gaining literally 0 new subscribers for several months. It's no secret that making videos about other creators is an effective way to gain views. Just look at the vegan teacher whose entire career is supported by this concept. It's possible that Zane made this video to farm views from the controversy and drama it would generate, but unfortunately for him, it backfired spectacularly, and the backlash was immediate. Brandon Buckingham led the charge as one of the first YouTubers to respond to Zane's slanderous statements. In a tweet reading, "Hey Prey Shadows, going through every one of Wendigoon's friends and insulting them to try and paint him in a bad light makes you seem like a desperate and pathetic freak." Brandon also sarcastically praises Zane for using a picture of his grandpa after his brain surgery, reading, "Also, using a photo of my grandpa after his brain surgery is super cool of you. You seem like a great guy. I want to shake your hand." In a later tweet, Brandon pointed out the sheer insanity of 2 of the worst statements Zane made in his video. 1, labeling every white person living in Appalachia as racist, and 2, saying that Wendigoon should not be allowed in public spaces because he's conservative. In a tweet reading, "I forgive you for thoughtlessly defaming me, but claiming all white people in deep Appalachia should be assumed to be racist, and saying Wendigoon should not be allowed in public because of his assumed beliefs really shows how hateful and insane you are." The YouTube community didn't hold back either. They started ripping apart Zane's absurd accusations line by line. For example, in his video, Zane tried to portray the YouTuber donut operator as a bad person by criticizing his content.
For example, one of his videos is titled "Predator Takes Shotgun to the Face" and features a picture of him smiling in the corner of the thumbnail next to an image of a terrified man about to be executed by cops, with the text that reads, "Head removal."
To which someone posted, "Oh no, Wendigoon is friends with a guy who made fun of a PDF file who was rightfully shot. The absurd horror. Maybe we should check your hard drive." Which is a fair point. What's absurd is that the donut operator video Zane mentioned shows a predator getting shot by the police after he pulled a gun and tried to shoot the officers. So mentioning this in the video as something that makes donut operator, and by extension Wendigoon bad people, just makes Zane look like a PDF file defender. And as a reply to this tweet states, "What's up with leftists getting very defensive in behalf of PDF files?" As if the backlash on Twitter wasn't enough, the creator Zane slandered, like some ordinary gamer, Brandon Buckingham, and Shoeonhead, also published full videos debunking his accusations and pointing massive holes in his arguments. Brandon also reached out to Wendigoon and asked for his response on this whole situation. And while everyone else was making fun of Zane for his terrible takes, Wendigoon's response was quite sane and mature, despite all the outlandish claims Zane made against him.
He seems to hate me a lot, which is fine. Not everyone has to like me. Have I ever said anything to this guy? Have I ever been rude to him, said anything about him? And I don't think I have. I've been a person that's had trouble forgiving other people, or like I've just harbored, hate towards other people in my life, and it's not fun to keep kind of this anger locked up. And it sounds like there's a lot of spitefulness. I'm not sure what I've done. The points he espoused in the video is that, it's because I followed him, because I liked his video. He took us something else. Maybe that's all. Maybe there's more. I don't know. But whatever it is, I'm sorry if I've attributed to that in any way. And regardless, I'm sorry he feels that way.
He even went as far to apologize to Zane just in case he ever did anything to hurt his feelings.
To him directly, I'm sorry, for this perception of anything I've given you. I'm sorry if I've ever devalued from you or your channel. I apologize, and I sincerely mean it. I hope you find whatever you're looking for. I want everyone, regardless if they like me or not, to do well. Christ didn't say love people who are nice to you. He just said love people. If you say stuff online, you're going to get pushback for it if it's, any kind of controversial, but I hope you don't let that deter you in the long run. I hope you can continue to pursue your dreams. I promise I will not try to stand in the way of that, and I hope none of my followers do.
This calm and collected response further reinforced the faith Wendigoon's fans had in him. It also served as direct evidence against everything Zane tried to convey in his video. Like this comment on YouTube mentions, ironically, in praise of Shadow's video on him only really succeeded in giving Wendigoon positive clout, indirectly helping him. Of course, not every YouTuber Zane mentioned in the video responded with such kindness. Oompaville, for example, decided to go on the offensive a bit.
All I can say, every time I see something like this, I think of that fucking scene from Billy Madison at the end.
Mr. Madison, what you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Zane, on the other hand, was also feeling the pressure from this immense backlash, leading to a lackluster response that did little to restore his online reputation. His video got ratioed to oblivion as soon as it went live, with over 27,000 dislikes in total. In response, Zane first deleted the entire 30-minute segment about Wendigoon, and then removed the video from his channel altogether, likely to dodge any more backlash. However, he made the situation worse for himself by trying to argue his way out of the controversy on Twitter. You see, in one of his response tweets, Brandon said that Zane was moody because he looked like he had low testosterone and that he should exercise more, to which Zane responded by saying, "You using homophobic language to me, though in calling me a low testosterone freak, does not change my opinions about you. My base thoughts remain the same, even though I should have said them differently and not let that cloud my writing." In other words, Zane still stood by everything he said about Brandon and probably others. He just realized he needed to phrase it better. Brandon immediately shot back and called out Zane for continuing to slander him and making him seem like a villain by twisting his words. After spreading false accusations that I threatened to grape someone, this guy is now claiming I am homophobic because I said he seems like he has low testosterone. You are such a victim. Brandon further clarified, "I had no idea you were homosexual. I was calling you a low testosterone freak for being such a miserable, moody asshole who baselessly slandered me in an attempt to demonize a close friend of mine." This humiliation, combined with the backlash of hundreds of other Twitter users, forced Zayn to private his Twitter account. Unfortunately for Zayn, the trouble was far from over. Someone had leaked the post he made for his Patreon supporters. Now, to be fair, there are some parts of this post that are pretty logical considering what went down, like Zayn apologizing for engaging himself in the wrong way and promising to avoid similar projects in the future. However, immediately after this, he goes back to saying that whatever he said in the video was right, reading, "I thought that I was doing good here, and I think to an extent I did do some good, but I could have gone about it differently." He also made a community post on his YouTube channel with similarly mixed statements, apologizing while also trying to play the victim card. With a tweet from Chris the Narc reading, he put out a community post saying he's received harassment. "I do not condone it, but you kind of invoke karma when you straight misreport or lie about people." And just when you think he couldn't dig himself a deeper hole, someone leaks his posts from his Discord server, and he's still in complete denial and believes he's 100% in the right, with a message reading, "Oh yeah, nobody in the video has actually refuted any of what I said lol, they only point out small individual things that are wrong, but don't actually go as far to say that what I said wasn't right." At this point, it's clear that no counter-argument will make Zayn fully admit that what he said about Wendigoon and other YouTubers was baseless and lacked any real evidence. If it's not clear by now, in Zayn's mind, the only correct opinion is his own, and everyone else is just a misinformed bully who's harassing him online for stating the truth. Unfortunately, it looks like there's nothing the rest of us can do to make him see the light and find the error in his thinking. As for his career on YouTube, the future of his channel is in his own hands. Most people will move on to the next big controversy within a few weeks and forget all about Zayn's 3.5 hours of ramblings. And while a handful of people would keep reminding him of his mistakes, their feedback doesn't really matter in the long run. The thing is, Zayn did find some success from this whole debacle. Since posting the controversial video, his Patreon supporters have increased by over 45%. This gives him the chance to get back on his feet. All he has to do is stay away from future controversy and make high-quality videos on the topics which made him popular in the first place. Horror movie analysis. He still has over 390,000 subscribers, many of whom don't really care about his controversial political views and are just waiting for his next video. This is in stark contrast to Illuminati, whose situation still continues to get worse, with almost the entirety of her audience turning against her. Click the video on screen to find out more.